be talking about another interest of mine, which is aviation. So as a reference, aviation refers to the flying or operating of an aircraft. What surprises me the most is how advanced our technology has gotten and how much progress has been made in the past century regarding aircraft structure, electronic devices, companies and manufacturers, and many more. In today's presentation, the history of when and how aviation started will be discovered, along with case studies and common questions along the way. Here is a timeline of events that occurred in aviation history, and I will cover the most important events that laid the blueprint for modern aeronautics and aircraft handling. In early stages of aeronautical development, a few figures in history laid the framework of their perceptions, theories, and ideas on what they believed modern aviation and aircraft structure would look like. The infamous artist Leonardo da Vinci created a literature piece called Codex on the Flight of Birds, which contained thousands of notes and hundreds of sketches on the nature of aerodynamics and fundamental aerodynamic principles. 2 months after French brothers Joseph and Jacques engineered a successful flight with a duck, a sheep, and rooster as passengers, it was time that humans trialed a new method of travel. The first solo manned hot air balloon flight was performed by Jean and Francois on a hand-fed fire, which allowed for extension of 500 feet and also traveled some 5.5 miles over half an hour in Paris. The competition between aircraft creations grew, and rival balloon engineers Jacques and Nicolas created a new hot air balloon structure just 10 days after. Their balloon was powered by hydrogen gas and traveled 25 miles and stayed afloat for more than 2 hours. In the early 19th century, English philosopher George Cayley published his findings on aerial navigation, a series of introductions to the world of aerodynamics. He also identified the 4 forces of flight: weight, lift, drag, and thrust, and developed the first concept of a fixed-wing flying machine, and later designed the first glider reported to have carried a human afloat. So weight is the force of gravity, and it acts in a downward direction towards the center of Earth. Lift is the force that holds an airplane in the air. The wings create most of the lift used by airplanes. Lift is the force that is created by air differences and acts at a right angle to the direction of motion. Drag is the force that acts opposite to the direction of motion, and thrust is the force that propels a flying machine in the direction of motion. Engines create thrust, and a diagram is also provided. Brothers Orville and Wilbur made the first controlled and sustained flight of a heavier-than-air aircraft. Each brother flew their wooden, gasoline-powered propeller biplanes called a Wright Flyer twice, for a total of 4 flights. The shortest flight lasted 12 seconds, whereas the longest flight sustained for almost 59 seconds. Harriet Quimby, who was a journalist, became the first American woman to be awarded a pilot's license after just 4 months of flight training. Quimby was also the first woman to fly solo across the English Channel, which is a part of the Atlantic Ocean that separates southern England from northern France. However, her victory was overshadowed by the sinking of Titanic 2 days before. As a side note, monoplanes are planes with 1 pair of wings, and biplanes are planes with 2 pairs of wings, one above the other, and pictures of both are presented on the screen. On January 1st, 1914, the first commercial passenger flight took place, and believe it or not, this first flight only cost $5. Now let's begin with major aircraft manufacturing companies and their histories, along with iconic aircrafts that are both in service and discontinued. Boeing dates back to 1916. Boeing was founded by William E. Boeing, a timber executive. The expertise built aircrafts, which were known as flying boats back in the day, for the Navy during World War I. Boeing was first known as the Aero Products Company. It was located in Seattle and then settled in Chicago. In 1958, it finally rolled out the 707. By the end of the 20th century, the Boeing 747 was released, with 400 seats and bigger and faster engines, that soon became the highest-selling commercial airplane of all time. The 747 is also known as the Queen of the Skies because of its first-of-a-kind shape and design, as well as the unique aspects that no other jet has been able to offer. If you notice, all commercial Boeing aircraft start with a 7X format, such as the 737 and the 747. Airbus dates back to July 1967. At that time, American firms like Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, and Lockheed were in great power and strength and influenced the entire world. On May 29, 1969, French and German governments agreed to produce and sell the Airbus A300B. In July 1978, Airbus came out with the A310. It was shorter than the A300 but came with a longer range. Airbus also marked the arrival of the digital cockpit, which is one of the greatest technological advancements in aviation history. Soon, many aircraft were also built, which are also showcased on the slide. In 2000, Airbus launched the largest double-decker passenger plane, the A380, a personal favorite. However, as much as it sounds fancy, it was one of Airbus's worst mistakes. Its original intent was to compete with Boeing's 747. Instead, it turned out to be a poorly executed aircraft for a market that does not exist as of yet. If you notice, the Airbus follows an alphanumeric pattern for naming its models, the A3XX format, such as the A340 and the A330. Bombardier dates back to 1937, when Joseph Armand Bombardier launched the 7-passenger B-7 snowmobile. However, the company soon went bankrupt and officially ceased any new manufacturing. The Concorde was a turbojet-powered supersonic airliner that operated from 1976 until 2003. Its maximum speed went twice over the speed of sound, which often led to a sonic boom, which happens when an object moves faster than sound. Unfortunately, it was discontinued after an Air France Concorde crashed minutes after takeoff from Paris in July 2000, killing all 109 passengers on board and 4 on ground. On Monday, October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed shortly after takeoff due to a flight control problem. The same incident happened during the Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. The aircraft that was used in both flights was manufactured by a Boeing 737 MAX. There was major confusion about repetitive crashes of this new aircraft, and the blame leaned more towards the pilots. However, 2 black boxes were found from the Lion Air flight, which are actually orange. One is called the cockpit voice recorder, and the other one is called the flight data recorder, which records the altitude, airspeed, direction, as well as what the throttles were doing. The flight data recorder showed that there was a failure of the left-hand angle of attack indicator. This is a sensor located on either side of the airplane that measures the angle of the nose during a flight. Because this technology was faulty, it sent bad data to the aircraft system, which caused the MCAS system to go on. The aircraft system put pressure to bring the nose down, even though it was flying normally. Then, questions arose about the aircraft's design rather than the operation. Boeing later sent an official statement regarding the crash and concluded that the 737 MAX had a defect in the MCAS, which stands for Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. The MCAS works when certain angle of attacks were reached at certain speeds. It would automatically push the nose back down. So since this software was already flawed, it forced the 737 of the Lion Air flight to push the nose of the plane down, which ultimately became uncontrollable. When the Ethiopian air crash occurred, the flight data from the black boxes looked very similar to those of the Lion Air crash. Within 30 minutes, all 737 MAX 8 and 9 aircraft were prohibited from flying. Another point to keep in mind is that Boeing never taught their pilots of the system, as it was meant to work in the background of flights. As of now, only a few airliners use this aircraft. On March 21st, another 737-800 aircraft crashed. Is Boeing compromising safety for profit? And if corruption exists in aviation, is a question on everyone's mind. Here are some common questions. What's the difference between aeronautics and aviation? Aeronautics is the science or practice of travel through the air, and aviation is the flying or operating of an aircraft. What is the largest aircraft that has ever been built? The largest aircraft is actually the Antonov AN-225, but unfortunately, this masterpiece made by the Ukrainian aviation industry got destroyed during the conflict with Russia. This is a major setback in the aviation world. Why do airplanes fly so high? One of the main reasons commercial airplanes fly so high is air resistance. You see, the higher you go above the ground, the thinner the atmosphere becomes, and therefore the less resistance there is on the movement of the plane. So how do we tell an Airbus and Boeing apart? And this is pretty interesting for any airplane spotters out there. The Airbus cockpit windows are more symmetrical, whereas the Boeing ones are asymmetrical. The nose of the Airbus aircraft is round, whereas the Boeing nose of the aircraft is more sharp. Airbus engines are round, and Boeing engines are flat from the bottom. Lastly, Boeing engines are placed in front of the wing, whereas Airbus engines are fully under the wing. As of today, the aviation industry is still male-dominated, and the idea of female pilots is ignored. As a person with great interest in this field of engineering, it truly shows that the reality we are living in still has stereotypical norms, and a change in such roles is not accepted. Although a simple presentation can't change the decision of world-class industries, it is crucial for us to educate ourselves first, then others, to see a positive result. I hope that all of you learned something new today and feel motivated to find new passions and interests of your own. Thank you.